This is Behind the Mic with Kirkus Reviews, where the subjects are audiobooks and the actors who narrate them. I'm Jo Reed, and joining me is contributor Alan Minskoff. Hello, Alan.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you. It looks like spring is in the air, or close.
Yeah, it is where I am, too.
So tell me about the three books that we're talking about this week.
We are doing American fiction this week, 2 novels and a book of short stories.
And what are they?
The first is Vigil by George Saunders, and it's read by Judy Greer, Stephen Root, McLeod Andrews, and a full cast. The next is Last Night in Brooklyn by Xochitl Gonzalez, and it's read by Elizabeth Rodriguez. And the third is Brawler, written and read by Lauren Groff.
Those are 3 powerhouse authors. Let's begin with George Saunders. What's the book about?
The book is the dying days of a kind of oilman, oil baron, billionaire who is truly not repentant and should be. It is a fascinating book because it is full of ghosts. There is a ghost assigned to him who we will hear in our sound sample coming down to earth. And what is wonderful for an audiobook listener is sometimes she inhabits him and they kind of read at the same time. This is a piece of fiction that is extraordinarily well suited as to be an audiobook.
Well, I also think what's so interesting is that Jill, who's the ghost who comes down, is like a death doula. Her job is to bring him into the next life as comfortably as possible.
That is exquisitely well put. That is her job exactly. And she takes to it. She tries not to judge him, and the world will, but she tries not to. And she's very youthful. She dies young and keeps her youthfulness, and I think that therefore the choosing of Judy Greer, who has a very youthful voice, and understanding. Now, not all of the ghosts are understanding. There's a Frenchman played very well by McLeod Andrews, who is much more unforgiving. Andrews plays the part very broadly. So you get this youthful, honest, earnest ghost who's really charged with taking K.J. Boone, the oilman, into the next life. But then you get this broad Frenchman who comes in and is much less understanding and unforgiving.
Well, I think he wants our protagonist to repent.
He truly does.
And he is really doing everything in his power to make him sorry for the life he lived.
And he's not.
No.
He is who he is. His parents even come in. His of course past parents come in, and he is the same as he was. He does understand that people are critical of him. It's not like he's missing the point, but he is not taking the point.
Agreed. And he is played by Stephen Root, who is fabulous. I mean, the casting in this is phenomenal. I love Judy Greer. I think she is wonderful as Jill. Absolutely wonderful. McLeod Andrews, for me, can be a little over the top sometimes, though I understand that really is the character who's sort of losing his mind at the fact that this man will not repent. And Stephen Root could not be better.
He just captures him. He just captures
Absolutely.
that he's unrepentant, and he captures his. This man was, started out in Wyoming on an oil rig, and he ends up one of the wealthiest men on the planet. So, of course, he's quite full of himself, as he would be. And Stephen Root is just nails him, just gets it perfectly.
It reminded me of Lincoln at the Bardo, the kind of argumentative ghost in the Bardo. Or Vigil reminded me of the Bardo. I think that's a better way to put it.
Well, it is, of course, the same author, and he's, of course, one of our most experimental writers. He's happy to write short stories, nonfiction, and very winning fiction, and he's willing to go places that many other writers would not.
Absolutely, I agree. And he also has a special part in this.
Yes, he has a cameo in this. He comes in towards the end in a very short piece, but it's kind of neat that he's a kind of Hitchcock in fiction that he shows up in his audiobook.
This book is a full audio experience.
I think this is actually, I'm going to just say this. I think candidly, this is really made for an audiobook because, as I said, sometimes there's simultaneous reading by the dying Boone and Jill. And sometimes there's kind of the people come in and you hear it in such a way as it sounds very otherworldly. Where on the page, I'm just not so sure it would.
Okay. Well, why don't we hear a little bit now?
This is Jill coming to Earth to do her job.
This is Vigil by George Saunders. It's read by Judy Greer, and a full cast will be hearing from Judy Greer.
What a lovely home I found myself plummeting toward, acquiring, as I fell, arms, hands, legs, feet, all of which, as usual, became more substantial with each passing second. Below, a fountain. At the center of the fountain, a gold-plated statue of a dog. Someone must have really loved that dog. In the mouth of the golden dog, a golden duck. The duck's beak was hanging open in death, and a pocked area in its flank seemed meant to represent the entry field of the shot cluster. I observed all of this as I plummeted past, and then my head and torso pierced the asphalt crust of a semicircular drive and lodged in the dirt below.
That's a nice clip. You get the sense of the full soundscape that the book creates, and also the specialness of Judy Greer's narration. And it's so interesting to me that she hasn't done that much audiobook narration. I mean, she's done tons of films as a character actor, including The Descendants. But I hope she does more audiobooks. She is really pitch perfect.
I do too. She's really good.
In a role that you could muck it up pretty easily.
You could ham it up too. And, and you're right. She doesn't. She just gets it. And, she flies up her hometown. It's very poignant. She's also trying to understand a life cut off. She's like 23 in this when she dies. So that's part of it too. So you get a little bit of her life and death experience. And she really is the main narrator without question.
I think she's the soul of the book. And boy, just sterling. It's a great performance. So now we're going to Last Night in Brooklyn. Tell me a little bit about this. Remind me who the author and narrator are.
Okay, it's Last Night in Brooklyn by Xochitl Gonzalez, and it's read by Elizabeth Rodriguez. There's no other way to put this. This is a modern kind of take on Gatsby. This is a very talented young designer from Brooklyn who calls herself La Garza, and she has risen quickly and she has phenomenal parties. But the story is told by a very bright, Yale-educated, Hispanic woman from Brooklyn comes from the same neighborhood, and she is an extremely good observer of the comings and goings of La Garza and her set. It's tinged with some sadness. I would just say that Elizabeth Rodriguez is a fine narrator, again, captures the youth of the voice. It's not quite a historical novel, but it's written in one moment and set in another. It's set in the early 2000s, and you get the feeling it's written in the teens. So it is kind of looking back at a time and a moment.
It's set in 2007, 2008. So Obama is running for president. It's this moment of cultural shift. The financial crisis is happening, and the Barclays Center is coming to Brooklyn.
And it's a problem.
And it is problematic for many people.
And people in this group. In fact, the Last Night in Brooklyn refers to a famous bar that they are all going to its wake. It is its last night, and that's where the initial action takes place. I mean, like I said, the narrator is Yale educated, and she is whip smart. She's Hispanic to the core, but she has some relatives who come from a different milieu and a different world. So she travels not just in the hip hop Brooklyn, she also travels in a more rarefied strata through a relative.
She's an illegitimate child of a rich father.
Exactly right. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah, who summers in Oak Bluff.
Exactly. And while she is not close with that family, she's influenced by them. She spends part of every summer with them. She has an exceptionally successful cousin who's part of that family and very important in this story.
I like this book for so many reasons. One, because I've lived in Brooklyn and I've undergone gentrification there, so I really get it. And when I go to New York, I'm always going, okay, we need to go to an old New York, as we call it, an old New York bar or restaurant before it goes away, because they are closing so rapidly.
And this really captures that moment, as well as it captures the youthful exuberance of the people who were living in Brooklyn when Brooklyn is not quite the Trey Brooklyn that it is now. But it is being discovered. There's no question it's being discovered at this moment.
Well, this is set in Fort Greene.
Right.
Which got discovered after Williamsburg, which was already long discovered by the time where this book is set. Again, Elizabeth Rodriguez has not done many audiobooks. I think people probably...
I hope she does.
Yeah, I was utterly convinced by her.
What I loved about her is I think she has a little earthiness in her voice.
Yeah, there's a graveliness that I like.
Thank you. I think there's a little earthiness, graveliness. So she does all the parts well, but the narrator is very alive and she's very perceptive. But she also has her own issues. I mean, and I think that's very fair. You know, she's striving in her job and she wanted to be more than she is at this moment. What's fascinating is, of course, it's written later, so we know that she does have some success that she's not quite having at this moment. But she's a great peerer into other people's lives.
Very much like Nick in The Great Gatsby.
I think there's definitely a relationship. It'd be interesting to hear Xochitl Gonzalez talk about that. You know, let's not leave her quite yet. She is a very well-known columnist and nonfiction writer. She's part of the Atlantic Group, and she has been nominated for a Pulitzer.
Yes, she is. Yep.
Her opinion pieces are outstanding.
And I think she brings that same sense of observation that she brings to her opinion pieces. She really taps into that as she's writing fiction, because I found so many of the details. I found myself sort of nodding my head saying, that's right. Yes, yes.
I want to point out one of the details because she describes a music celebration in Brooklyn, a Brooklyn Park, that just you can feel it. You can feel the rhythm of it, and you can feel the people there. And she describes it, and of course the characters going through something there. I don't want to spoil it, but she does have an experience there. But you just feel that is exactly how people are living, and that's what Brooklyn is like at this moment.
Well, why don't we hear a little bit? Set it up for us.
Well, I wanted to have her bring La Garza in, so this is kind of where we start learning about La Garza.
This is Last Night in Brooklyn by Xochitl Gonzalez, read by Elizabeth Rodriguez.
I see La Garza holding court like the local celebrity she was. She was always on in those moments, drunk but rarely wasted, frighteningly keen about what was going on around her, witty and sharp, practically cutting in her assessments of who was in and who was out in the landscape of New York culture. It wasn't the way I'd come to know her later, when I'd get to see beyond the persona into the real person, when I'd come to understand that the front was an invention of necessity, a scaffolding erected to ensure that her true edifice felt secure.
It's great. And La Garza is a wonderful, wonderful character, and Elizabeth just sells it completely.
She really does. And I really like the sound of her voice. I truly hope she does more too.
You might know her from Orange is the New Black.
Yes, but not from audiobooks.
No.
So I'm hoping with you that, sometimes people who are bilingual really have opportunities, and there are more opportunities now than there have been for a while. And so I love hearing the Spanish as Spanish.
Yes, I completely agree. And we also should say we're kind of pre-reviewing this because it's not coming out for a couple of weeks. So people can have a sense of what they have to look forward to.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. And I would recommend it highly.
And we're finally ending with Brawler, written and read by Lauren Groff.
I rarely do this, but I'm going to read you the first sentence I wrote in the review of this, or the first two sentences. Groff is a rarity, an exquisite writer who also narrates beautifully. She reads with empathy, paces her stories well, and her tone, honed from performances, brings the listener close to the action. I think I got that right.
I think you did too.
She has an engaging voice, and she's clearly read her stuff a lot, publicly, maybe as she's writing it, and she has a compelling voice. There's almost a sweetness to her voice, but there's a resolve in these stories. She's one of our best writers. I'm just going to go on record happily.
Yeah, there's a thoughtfulness to her voice. She also narrated her short story collection, Florida.
Right.
And again, did a fabulous job with it. But I listened to this, and I swear within the first minute of the first story, Lauren Groff had me.
Me too. Why we can recommend it so highly is these stories are very, very different. Her voice is the same, but the stories are remarkably different. The title story is a story of a coming of age and of the disappearance of a parent. What's the Time, Mr. Wolf is a setup of a tragedy. So there's a lot of difference. Wind is very poignant. The first story, that we will listen to was very poignant and very atmospheric. So I really enjoyed these stories. I enjoy her. I like her novels too.
Yeah, I agree.
I said in the review, and I'm sticking to it again, I said she's the poet of the lonely, the wounded, the cast aside. You really get inside of those people, and I like the addition of the family dynamic, because she's always looking at family.
And she does, certainly in this book. What's the Time, Mr. Wolf? Wow, what a story that is. I had to stop.
When that story ended.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had to stop. I did not want to go on to the next story. I had to just sit with it.
We are kindred souls. I had to stop at the end of that story, kind of catch my breath. I was walking. I had to turn the machine off. I just thought, wow.
Wow. I really did not want the story to end. I mean, I so admire short stories, but you know me, I'm the 7-volume Victorian novel-loving person.
Right.
Because once I get to know people, I want them to be around for a while. And that one, it's perfect the way it is. And I really see that.
And whether you like, love, or critical of the state of Florida, she is their poet for sure. She gets under the skin and into the sand and the cells and the sky of that place.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's listen to a little bit. And what did you say? We're going to hear an excerpt from The Wind?
We're kind of starting at the beginning with the story of The Wind.
All right, the opening story of the collection. This is The Wind. It's from the short story collection Brawler, and it was written and read by Lauren Groff.
They were so far out in the country, the bus came for them first, and the ride to town was long. At last it showed itself, yellow as sunrise, at the end of the road. Its slowness as it pulled up was agonizing. My mother's heart began to beat fast. She let her brothers get on before her and told them to sit in the front seats. Mrs. Palmer, the driver, was a stout lady who played the organ at church and whose voice, when she shouted at the naughty boys in the back, was high like soprano singing. She looked at my mother as she shut the bus door, then said in her sing-song voice, "You got yourself a shiner there, Michelle." The bus hissed up from its crouch and lumbered off. "I know," my mother said. "Listen, we need your help."
I mean, this story was like a knife to the heart, and I think you can hear also the thoughtfulness of her narration. At least for me, she just pulled me into that story.
Like I said, it's atmospheric, but it's also the emotion of that story is so powerful, and the plot is so compelling. I mean, this is why she's so masterful, because you can think she has this idea, and then she takes it to places that are right by your heart, right at the valve of your heart.
Yeah, and I'm going to be interviewing Lauren Groff, actually, and hopefully that interview will be up around the end of the month, so people, please listen for it. I'm very excited by it.
I am too, because I am a fan. And plus, she's an interesting human being. She's just like several other of our writers. She's opened a bookstore.
I was about to say, and let's hear it for writers who open bookstores.
Absolutely.
Well, wow. 3 classic modern American fiction. Yay for you.
I mean, there are books that are so powerful on the page, that's where they should be. But then there are audiobooks that make audiobooks just so special. And these were 3.
Alan, always a pleasure. It truly is. Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Take care, and I'll talk to you next month.
I'll look forward to it.
Behind the Mic is brought to you by Nelson Books, publisher of Jenny Allen's latest book, The Lie You Don't Know You Believed, narrated by Jenny and featuring exclusive audio content. It's available everywhere you get your audiobooks. Behind the Mic drops on Thursdays, and if you follow us, we will just appear in your feed. And please follow Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. It is the podcast for book lovers. Each Tuesday, host Megan Labrise brings you author interviews, industry insights, and recommendations from the bestseller list. Find your next great book on Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. You can follow Fully Booked and Behind the Mic on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to go by kirkusreviews.com to check out reviews for both print and audiobooks. Behind the Mic is produced by Jessica Lockhart. Michelle Cobb, Stephen Cummings, Leslie Fine, Alan Minskoff, Alex Ritchie, Laura Rossi, and Kendra Winchester are our contributors. Jennifer Dow is our editor, with an assist from Alicia Langerman, and Tom Beer is the executive producer. The music is William Ross Chernoff's Nomads 4-Way, and I'm your host, Joe Reed. Good listening.